message. We are at a turning point in the Black community where we must have equity in the apps we use that scale to billions of dollars. But this time, we own the infrastructure, we own the culture, and we shape the future. And Fanbase is the future. Fanbase combines the free functionality of Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube into an all-in-one platform built for the evolution of social media and monetization. With over 1.4 million users, that's real proof that we are shifting the conversation of tech ownership and equity for creators. So right now, I want you to go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. The minimum to invest is $399. That gets you 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. This marks a turning point in Black ownership of social media. If we don't take this opportunity to own social media right now, we will always be customers to our own creations. And that can't go on. So once again, go to startengine.com/fanbase and invest today. We must own the platforms where our voices live, our stories matter, and where our culture drives the world. Thank you.
Black Star Network is no punch!
A real revolutionary right now.
I thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All the momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Thanks for joining us, candidates. Ms. Earl Sears, you're first. Tom.
Thank you, Deanna. We want to begin tonight.
Folks, what's happening? Today is Tuesday, October 21st, 2025, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We're live here in Fredericksburg, Virginia right now. At the Vision Community Church, special edition of the show. Of course, Our Vote, Our Voices, partnering with the Legislative Black Caucus here in Virginia. Lots to talk about. Of course, we got election coming up. Election day, November 4th, but voting is happening right now in Virginia. We'll talk about the government shutdown. You got races happening around the country. You, of course, have got craziness happening in the nation's capital as well. And we'll talk about, again, the importance of how we connect the dots when it comes to our voting power and how we must maximize it in this day and age when Black voting rights are completely under attack all across the country. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered. On the Black Star Network, let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. Yeah, it's Uncle Roro, y'all. Yeah, it's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin.
That they've created.
Last week, we were on the campus of Virginia State University on November 3rd. We're going to be in Virginia Beach and Suffolk as well, talking about the issues that matter in this state, but what also everyone is looking to Virginia, but also New Jersey as they sense of what's going to happen in 2026. You've got gubernatorial race, statewide races here in Virginia. You've also got a battle as who's going to control the House of Delegates. You also have the Senate. And, of course, in New Jersey, there's a governor's race there as well. And so we're looking at all of these different races taking place across the country because we're operating now in a space where in Washington, D.C., MAGA Republicans control the White House, the House, and the Senate. And so we see the impact of those decisions when it comes to this federal government shutdown that continues. Later in the show, we're going to hear from House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, who spoke earlier today at a news conference on Capitol Hill. We'll also look at, again, all the different issues that are happening, taking place. We'll hear from folks who are running for office, who want to be elected, who want to be reelected, and getting folks to understand that our vote absolutely is critically important. Because when we see what's happening right now in this country, where you have Republicans in North Carolina in the Senate, where they just approved a racially gerrymandered map, getting rid of a congressional seat from Congressman Don Davis, an African American. We saw what happened in Missouri, same thing there, where the Republicans got rid of a seat of Congressman Emmanuel Cleaver in Kansas City. And also, we're looking at the possibility where if Republicans get no support from Democrats to gerrymander their seats, you might see a ballot initiative that targets that issue as well. And so, folks, there we have 90 days to get 250,000 signatures on a petition in order to put it on the ballot in 2026. So there's a whole lot that's going on. And we want to talk about all those different things and why our vote and our presence absolutely matters. Let's start things off by first bringing up our beginning panel. So joining me right now to my left, Gary Flowers, host of the Gary Flowers Show. Never say I don't feel sorry for any Omegas. I allow them to speak. Philip Thompson, Esquire, President, Diverse Engagement, LOC. Michael Futrell, former Virginia State Delegate. Glad to have all three on the show. Y'all give it up. Mike, I'll start with you. I'm always talking about how we see what happens in terms of the importance of our vote. 2008, then Senator Barack Obama gets elected as president. That was the first time in American history, by percentage, the black vote actually was higher than the white vote. But ever since then, we've seen a decrease in black voter turnout. That was 17 years ago. A lot of people felt stuff did not get done. There are people who say that they are frustrated. They believe Democrats don't fulfill promises. And they say, well, why should I even vote? But then we see what happens when we don't vote. When you see a decrease in black turnout, then you see an increase in white voter turnout. Then you get Donald Trump winning the presidency. And then we see what Project 2025 has brought to the country. And it's a whole bunch of white broke folks in Virginia, in Arkansas, and other places who voted for him who now are crying because those policies are impacting them. And they say, well, I didn't vote for that. And I'm like, oh, actually, you did. You just didn't read the fine print. But one of the things that I say, though, to African-American activists, politicians, and others is that one of the reasons people don't know is because they don't know. They don't live and breathe this stuff. So talk about why we have to spend a significant amount of time connecting the dots so people understand public policy and who does what a city council does, what a county government does, what the state legislature does, and what Congress does.
No, that's a great lead-in, and thank you so much for having
I know it's a great lead-in, dog. I know what I'm doing. This ain't my first rodeo.
You've done this a couple times or two, huh? Well, it's funny. When I first ran for office in 2013, I used to go sit into barbershops, and I would just have random conversations about things that were going on. And I used to talk to a lot of young brothers, and when I would talk to them, they'd be like, oh, I don't pay attention to politics. And I used to say, well, guess what? Politics pays attention to you. And, the laws and the things that are going to be enacted are going to be things that you are going to have to live by. So the question is, are you going to participate in the process or not? And if your vote didn't mean anything, people wouldn't be going out of their way to make sure that you didn't have the opportunity to vote. And so these are things that we need to pay attention to, because when you sit out of the process, what you get are things like we have in front of us right now. We're sitting here in the middle of a government shutdown, right? We're talking about millions of people losing health care. Right now, we've got hundreds of thousands of Virginians who right now aren't able to work. You've got hundreds of millions of dollars that are being taken out of communities because of the people that we have in office. So at some point, you either want to be part of the solution or you continue to sit back quietly and continue to be a part of the problem. I'm going to tell you right now, when you pay attention to the trend, you brought up 2008, the difference in 2008, it wasn't just because Barack Obama was black. It was because Barack Obama talk to us. It's because he had conversations about things that we should be paying attention to. They had conversations about things that would be important to us. So when we all rallied around it, when we had something that we could believe in, that's when we started to make an impact. Because I'm telling you, when you come to the black community and help them understand what this is going to mean to them, they're going to rally behind it. I'm going to tell you right now, you look at everything that's going on across the nation, and if you told everybody, you said, this is exactly what it's going to be, I'm telling you, there's nobody that would have voted for it. And so right now, we have an opportunity to step up to make sure that our voice is heard. We can't sit back quietly. Sitting back quietly is how you get what we got. But no longer are we going to stand aside and allow people to make decisions for us. I used to say, if you don't have a seat at the table, that means you're on the menu. Well, now it's time for us to help set the menu as well. Amen.
Philip, to that point, it's one thing to come to people in their agenda and say, please support this. But the issue that we're seeing is folks are saying, but did you deliver? And that's a whole different deal. Now, you can be angry and upset with the crazy nonsensical things that Trump and MAGA are doing right now, but they literally told folk, we're going to do this. That's like playing a football game and the other team hands you their playbook and says, we're going to run these 90 plays Saturday. Try to stop us. And that's exactly what happened. And so part of the issue here is that people say, I'm checking out of the process because you promised me we were going to do these things and you didn't. Do you believe that's a part of what we're dealing with this voter dissatisfaction happening with progressives, with Democrats in this country?
Yes, Roland, that's no doubt what's going on. And I'm one of the biggest critics in Virginia on having and staying on Democrats about delivering for our people. We vote Democrat at high levels, and the delivery side always seems to be that we go to the back of the bus on the issue train. Now, that's one of the issues that people have set back. You saw these memes now where you see black people sitting on top of a building while everything is smoking. A lot of people have kind of said, man, I've had it. We're back fighting a battle we thought we had conquered in 1970s and 1980s, and here we are back now. But who's speaking to our issue? Have anybody heard anything about voting rights in this election? Has anybody heard anything about fixing our schools? These are the issues that are important for us to hear in order to get people out to vote. As Mike said, there were people that were dissatisfied and saying, man, I'm not voting. But again, these issues will land on your head if you don't vote. But the Democratic Party has to start delivering for us. Now, I know we have some candidates here that are going to talk later. They all go down to Richmond and they work hard for us when they get elected. But still, there's a delivery point. We have to make sure our governor is the governor that we elect is going to deliver. And we also have to make sure we don't leave. And one of the things I do want to add, we cannot leave our Attorney General candidate behind, Jay Jones. All right? Whether it's true or not, the perception is that certain elements of the Democratic Party have left Jay behind because of the comments that he made in 2022. We have to go get Jay. We have to go rescue Jay. So we want to be sure that we not only get a Democratic governor, we want a Democratic Attorney General, a Democratic Lieutenant Governor to go down there and work with the blacks that we have in the General Assembly that are in positions of power and can make things happen. So it's important that we deliver. But on the other side, the Democratic Party has to come talk to us. And they have to deliver for us and stop this process of saying, we need your vote. And as you see right now, they brought who's coming out now. President Obama's coming to Virginia to help push this thing in October. We've seen this before, these late pushes, but you got to start delivering for us or we're going to sit these elections out, and that's just what's happening. But
Gary, I agree with all of that, but I do believe that one of the greatest mistakes that we continue to make in terms of as a community is that when the election is over, everybody goes back to business as usual. I think so. The issue for me is that in Black Voters Matters, I talk to Cliff Albright and Latasha Brown about this all the time, where he said they say our politics has to be 365, 7 days a week. In getting us to understand that what happens in Virginia, what happens in North Carolina, in Georgia, in all these states, we build these massive voter engagement, voter turnout machines. The election's on November 4th, but then on November 5th, it gets turned off. Part of the reason why I think what you just laid out happens is that we don't keep that machine going to then tell folk, okay, now that you voted, that's now passed. Now you've got to be showing up at the council meeting, the school board meeting, the county commissioners meeting, at the state legislature to put the pressure on the very folk who made promises to then deliver it. That, to me, is where I believe that we are making a huge mistake. That's not happening on a consistent basis.
Thank you, Brother Roland. We have a 30-year relationship, and thank you for this opportunity tonight. You hit a point, 365 all the time. There was a time, and Reverend Jesse Jackson reminded us of this in Chicago. He just turned 84 years old. There was a time that our churches taught civic education. We in a church, somebody say amen.
Amen.
There was a time that we taught the voter test. There was a time that we taught the idea that we can't stop. And somehow or another, our churches and our institutions think that the day after the election, we can go back to what we were doing. I submit that to do the same thing over and over again is to be insane. How many of you all are in an organization, including a church? Raise your hand. Why not within your organization? I know that I saw some fraternities and sororities here. Why not within your sorority or fraternity have subcommittees by congressional districts? Subcommittees, state district, delegate district. And all your job all year is to report back on what are the issues in that district for absolution. But that doesn't stop with fraternities and sororities. Churches need to do that. And pastors who tell you that there's a separation of church and state is untheological. Our heroes and sheroes of the Bible always challenged Pharaoh in unjust decrees. Joshua, he didn't march for exercise. Nehemiah didn't build the wall to just keep people out. Esther said, if I perish, I will perish if my people cannot come with me. And so we have to look at this thing a whole different way. But you know what? Actually, we just have to look at what our ancestors did. They had less communication, okay? They had more stress. We run around here on our phones talk about what you doing. None. All right. So with that, Roland, I do think that it has to be 365, but we have to change the structure of how we approach whether we need to know civics, whether we need to know politics and policy.
Well, I've said this on the show numerous times that when we talk about what we are now facing, and I've had some folks try to give us some pushback, and I'm like, fine, I think you're wrong. The issue that we have is so if you look at King's assassination, April 4th, 1968, and so if you look at from that point, I'll say take it through, let's say Obama's election. Fine, it's 2008. Now you're talking 40 years. So the person who was 25 when King was assassinated, with Obama's election, the person was 65. Okay, so you had a community infrastructure. So you talk about churches, you talk about NAACP chapters, so you had a community infrastructure. So we all knew who that brother was, that sister was, who knew who didn't vote, who voted. They understood precincts. They understood what was happening in neighborhoods. They were the ones who told us, hey, this is what the city is doing. I mean, perfect example, we invited members of the Board of Supervisors out, and before I came out here, I was talking to a sister. She's a doctor, Dr. Nikita Tori Bundrant, and she wanted to be here, but she's speaking to the supervisors because they're having public testimony regarding a data center. Now, what happens politically, because we dealt with this in Petersburg on Thursday, was a city councilman who said, hey, this is going to bring jobs, but the data center is also going to bring health problems. She's speaking about keeping these data centers in this area away from people, at least a 2-mile radius, because of the impact on their bodies. That is an economic development issue, but that is an environmental issue. That is a health issue. And it's a perfect example of why we have to be engaged in that process. And that to me, so what is missing, I believe, in many of our communities, those people who for 40, 45 years, who were working in those communities, keeping us apprised, they're retiring. They're passing away. And the problem is you can't replace that real boots on the ground with social media. You have to have folk who are replacing those people. And I think that's what we're missing right now. And that's why you don't have the voter education, because those folks have been slowly retiring and passing away, and we haven't replaced them to keep that community political infrastructure together. You wanted to go ahead and say something?
Yeah, I wanted to say, because you bring up a great point about the need for us to rally and support after the election. I'm going to tell you the biggest issue I dealt with in the Virginia House of Delegates when I was in office, it wasn't Medicaid expansion, it wasn't voting rights, it was the EC versus the Sea of Japan. Somebody says, what is that? Well, what ended up happening was, you know it as the Sea of Japan. Well, what happened was years ago, Japan crossed Korea. They take over to the winners go the spoils. It used to be called the EC. They changed it to the Sea of Japan. They brought a bill saying that in all textbooks, we wanted to say the Sea of Japan, comma, also known as the EC. Not even an issue that we should have been taking up in the Virginia General Assembly, right? But what happened was that community organized in such a way that we had no choice but to acknowledge. Every day, I got 75 emails about it. Every day, there were 30 people who came by my office. Every subcommittee meeting was packed off with everyone in that community. Every committee meeting was packed out. They brought in buses. So the day that it actually hit the floor, all along the gallery of the General Assembly, it was news from around the world. That whole community was there fighting for it. And so we ended up passing it, a bill that we probably shouldn't have taken up. But it showed the power of what happens when people come together and fight for what they believe in.
But that also was what I call offensive mobilizing, not defensive. And I think what happens too often, Philip, is that we are operating in a defensive posture. We are responding to something and we're trying to stop it from happening, as opposed to saying, no. We want this, we want this, we want this, and we about to bring all the heat on everybody. And when I say that to our communities, stop going to Richmond and only talking to black state legislators. No, you need to go talk to every single one. And I'll give an example. We did this when the Senate would not confirm Loretta Lynch. And the sisters were constantly marching. And I kept saying, where in the hell are the brothers? Like literally, I kept seeing Delta, she's Delta. I kept seeing Black Women's Roundtable. I kept seeing other sisters. And so Pastor Jamal Bryant, Jeff Johnson, myself, we put the call out, 200 brothers. We literally said, meet us on this day at the fountain. 200 brothers showed up. Nearly all of them had never even been to the U.S. Capitol. It was more cops that day than you saw on January 6th. Because they were trying to figure out where 200 black men came from. So if y'all want to see a lot of cops at the U.S. Capitol, just have 200 black men show up unannounced, you're going to see a bunch of cops. So, but what happened was, and these brothers didn't understand how it worked. So when we went to the Capitol, I said, okay, who's from this state? Oh, I am. Come to the front. You walk in and ask to see your state, your U.S. senator. So we go in to see Thad Cochran. They had Cochran, Mississippi. And they said, well, he's busy. Like, well, we ain't leaving. And we packed that office. We packed the hallway. At one point, as a matter of fact, it was another group that was sitting right here. It was several women. And the sister said, we have 20 minutes with the senator. We'll give them 10 of ours. They were like, oh, you can't do that. I was like, oh, you can't do that. Okay, right. And so we wouldn't leave. And so what happened was when we finally made it clear we're not leaving, then they said, okay, we're going to give you some time with the senator. He comes in. And I had to remind him that he was only reelected because black people voted in the Republican primary so the MAGA Tea Party dude would not win. And I had to remind Cochran, you only here because of black people. I said, so we fully expect you to vote for Loretta Lynch. And if you don't, we're going to be back. And what was a trip was these brothers, they had never actually seen the process play out. And they were like, yo, when we coming back? Because they saw how it works. And so that was just a small example of what we did there. And to me, what we have to be operating on the offense and not playing defense. And that's what I constantly struggle with. We wait for something to happen and then we're responding to what somebody's already done.
But Roland, once again, I echo the point. Once again, Reverend Jackson taught me you can't teach what you don't know. You can't lead where you don't go. That's point one. Point two, children emulate what the adults in their village do, okay? You show me, it says, it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah, well, criminal villages raise criminal children for the most part. Uneducated villages, the same. Politically aware communities do so as well. So our adults have to learn, you talk about passing the baton, our adults have to know the Constitution. How many of you all have an annotated copy of the Constitution, the small little copy? Okay, we need more of that, okay? Secondly, once you talk about structure, then if I was politically active, because my parents were talking about political issues at the dinner table.
Right.
I invented an election in kindergarten because these two, Ward Oxney and Danny Wurtzel, were the boss of playground every day. And I wanted to be boss. And I said, well, when are we going to have an election? They looked at me like I was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But my parents have been talking about elections. And so at 5 years old, I replicated that. So people in here, I know, just blink if you know what I'm talking about. You have to raise your hand. But most of y'all don't know the Constitution. Most of y'all don't even know what congressional district, state district, or state delegate district you're in until you pull out your wallet.
Well, look, I can't tell you how many times we've gone somewhere and someone said, that's my representative. I'm like, no, what's your zip code? Right. Type it in. That is not your representative.
Exactly.
But again, again, so what we need to understand right now, Philip, I'm going to go to you here, that what has to happen now is, okay, we're telling folks to vote right now, but the day after the election, take a breath, rest, then go, because let's be real clear, there's a period between the election and the inauguration, between somebody being swearing in. And what happens is many of us are just, hey, we're like, it's all over. But other folk are already crafting a legislative agenda. So when the General Assembly comes, they're like, oh, no, we're not waiting. We're ready. Here's our agenda. So with that being said, what do you want to be the three dominant issues on a black agenda, regardless of who wins in any district? But let's just assume Democrats win the House, control the Senate. Let's assume they win the governor's mansion. What do you want the three top issues to be?
The first one has to be education.
Okay, but that's a broad topic. Okay. What specifically about education?
Well, the specific issue on education would be to ensure that our schools are being funded.
That's too broad. Correctly. I need to drill down further because I'm doing this for a reason. Because part of the deal is if you ask for general prayer, if you have a general prayer, you get a general blessing. So you need to. I believe in specific prayers for specific blessings. So when you say funding, I need a number. What are you talking about? What are we asking for?
Fund HBCUs, number one.
What's the number? No, please. No, I ain't done. When we say fund HBCUs, we got to be specific. So I'm going to help you out here. First, fund Virginia State the $277.5 million owed from the period of 1987 to 2020 that money was stolen for land grant. See, when we say fund HBCUs, if they give $5 million, that's funding. No. I want the 277.5. So no, hold on. What else?
I didn't have that number, but also ensure that the HBCUs are being funded at the same per student financial numbers as our University of Virginia, Virginia Tech, and all the white institutions.
Okay, that's two. That's two. Give me one more.
The last issue would be criminal justice reform, and when I say that, specifically dealing with qualified immunity. Qualified immunity is a barrier from holding police accountable.
So you want the General Assembly to revoke qualified immunity?
To revoke it from the standpoint, government can't operate without qualified immunity in certain ways, but at least revoke it where an unarmed person is shot or killed by a police officer.
So you want modifications to the state's qualified immunity?
Correct.
Got it. Gary, what are your three?
First, a constitutional amendment for an equal and high-quality education for every student. Two, to take the teacher pay of public teachers in the Commonwealth of Virginia at least to the national average, if not above. Okay?
Okay.
Because our teachers, our young people are not going into education because there's no incentive or little incentive to do so. And thirdly, when we look at the structure of our schools, the Commonwealth of Virginia tonight is the sixth wealthiest state in the Union. And yet the General Assembly tells us there's no money for public schools. That's a lie. So fund equally the school buildings. I come from Richmond, Virginia, the capital of the Commonwealth. 44 school buildings. Nearly 38 are dilapidated in one way or another. And we have the money to pay for it. So funding of faculty, funding of facilities, at least at the national rate. But since we're in church, you put your treasure where your heart is. Amen? Well, if you treasure education, candidates that run, we want quality education. Like you said, Roland, that's nebulous. It's not definable. Fund the teachers at the national level or above and fund the public schools like you mean it.
Michael.
Are you going to come to me after they took all the answers?
It's a whole lot our community need.
Well, you asked me what was important to me.
Guess what? Find some new stuff.
No, and I agree with the teacher pay at the national average and also how our public schools are being funded. But there's another thing that I also want to make sure that we start addressing, which is minority contracting here in Virginia. One of the things that continues to happen.
Now, hold on. On this show, we say black and minority contract.
Well, then black and minority.
That's how we do it on this show.
I know that's right.
We real specific.
I know. When
we say we want minority contract, they can give it to a whole bunch of people that's not us.
And honestly, that's what we continue to run into, right? And we saw that even in 2013 when Governor McAuliffe at the time, or 14, when he started working with SWAM businesses. We saw a lot of those same things where what would end up happening is husband would shift the company to the wife's name and they would qualify. We set a goal that we wanted 43% of contracts to go to black and minority-owned businesses, but that's only a goal. There was no policy that was behind it that, said that we would actually be able to reach it.
We also got to stop saying minority and women-owned businesses, because the reality is if you're a black woman, you're not counted in the women category, you're counted in the black category. If you're a Latina, you're not counted in his women category, you're counted in the Latina category. So the MWBE should be MWWBE, because the W really stands for white women.
And may I add this, Roland?
No.
I got one other point on education.
No, hold up. We ain't skipping over that. Okay, we ain't just moving on.
There it is.
I'm making a point here. There's been no group that has benefited from affirmative action policies and contracting policies in the United States more than white women.
True.
But when these programs have come under attack, white women have been silent, and it's been black folks they've been carrying the water with this. And so what has to happen is if we're going to get the language right, we got to stop saying minority and women-owned businesses and break down, well, how do you count women? And I've covered this issue on the city government, the county government, the state level, and the federal level, and that W stands for white women. 78% of the $37 billion that go to disadvantaged businesses on the federal government go to white women. 78%. So we just got to be very clear when we start talking about these contracts.
Right.
When we say women, and people just assume, oh, that includes a black woman. No, it does not.
Yep.
Go ahead with your other 2 points.
But that also,
Gary, hold on.
That also goes into what you talked about previously when you said, how do we get these things done? Because it's not just about the election, it's what happens after the election. What happens is no one's ever challenged those things, so they continue to operate as business as usual. And so, again, what has to happen is we have to get back to organizing as we once knew the power behind, to make sure that we're not leaving the Josh Coles or the Briannas out there by themselves. We're coming in with an army behind them that is continuing to push it forward, because this is what's important to our communities.
And the reason I am pushing to be very specific, because the problem is whenever we have these conversations, we are having general conversations. Yep. We're allowing people to have general phrases that sound great, not specific. And then what ends up happening is when we're trying to rally people, then we're trying to rally them around a general question. Let's fund public education. No. You got to be real clear on what it is you're actually funding. Yep. And to me, that's what has to happen, because now when we hand people that, to Gary's point earlier, when you talk about infrastructure, when you talk about Divine Nine, and I go beyond that, I then go Prince Hall Mason, Eastern Star, I go Links, we have all of these, we have a significant infrastructure in black communities. The problem is they are not properly organized and mobilized. They're spending significant time on internal business and not external business. True. The same thing with churches. True. The reality is you can have a church. Now, what you do with Bible study on Sunday is one thing, but you still reside in a community. You still got to deal with zoning. You still have to deal with issues and your members. And so we have to be giving our folk very specific issues that we want them to be confronting and now mobilizing around. Gary, real quick before I go to break.
One specific point to add to what the brothers have already said is, and candidate Nicole Cole remembers this from her days on school board, and that is to eviscerate the property real estate tax formula that incents money to go to the wealthy side of town for public schools and disincents that money to go to the poor side where our kids are.
I want to add a point on the organization side. I'm in Richmond, since this election's about Richmond, and the delegates here know if we pack the room like this on any issue, things are going to happen. We've done it. The last 4 years I've worked on marijuana legislation. The first bill was going to go through with hardly no minority set-asides. Now, we all know who has paid the price for marijuana in this country, in this state. African Americans at a high level. And we packed the room and the bills got changed. It's that important. The fraternities and sororities come down there with NAACP and they'll have their day. And everybody shows up in their colors.
Can't be days.
And
Can't be
walk
days.
around a happy
Has
day.
to be days.
You need to have happy days. You need to start coming down there in shifts and showing up for the bills. You need to call the delegates and say, hey, we can bring 20 or 30 people. Is there something we can come to that hearing room and help you push? We got to get organized.
But we also have to use data collection. What I mean by this is, and the folks have to register for this tonight, okay? But what often happens is we have rallies, we have protests, we have things along those lines, but very rarely are folks collecting data. I remember you talking about Reverend Jackson. Reverend Jackson got real mad at me when I was at my radio show in WVON in Chicago, and they were having a protest, and I was like, Reverend, what's data collection? They had no data collection. And I was like, well, y'all just gathering for an event. I said,
that's not true.
Gary, Gary, don't even go there.
This is national TV.
Gary.
We had data collection.
I have the audio of the interview. Now, you do not want to go there with me. I have receipts.
I was the field director.
And guess what? I'm trying to tell you. And that's what Reverend was hot. I told him to get over it. But that's my and I'm telling you, one of the reasons why Bishop William Barber and Repairs of the Breach have been successful is they don't do any event without collecting data. They know who is showing up. They have names and emails and addresses and phone numbers. And so that's the other thing, because if 1,000 people show up and you have the data, now when it's time for the city council meeting or the subcommittee, you can now send the e-blast out or the text blast to say, hey, I need 100 people to show up. But that's why the data is important.
Reverend Barber got it from Reverend Jackson.
No, hold up. I understand that. But my point is, Gary, you could defend all day, but on that particular march, wasn't no data. I was there. So the point I'm making is we can't have data every now and then. You got to have data collection at every single time we gather, so you know who's in the room and now how to move people when it's time to act.
You know, I just came back from Memphis at the National Civil Rights Museum, and you know everybody knows Lorraine Hotel was a motel where Dr. King was assassinated. The first exhibit you come to is Bayard Rustin.
Yep.
And it's all about organization. And then as you go through that museum, you see the civil rights movement was not happenstance. People were planning. They were picking towns. They were gathering people. Even the bus boycott became an organized event where people were signing up to drive people and all these things. We've lost that. For some reason, we've lost that ability to organize. Again, all we come out for is the negative. We never go for the positive and how we get our people moving and how we move forward. I ask all of you, go to the National Civil Rights Museum and look at those exhibits, and you will see organized people that actually accomplish something, has specific missions. And these are the things that Roland's been talking about.
And it's old school. I mean, bottom line is you can have social media, you can have phones and everything, but you have to take old school and put it with new school. It goes together. I'm going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to chat with some of the candidates who are running for office. Lots of the stuff we're going to cover as well. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network, our special town hall. Our vote, our voice is right here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We'll be right back.
This week on the other side of change.
Book bans, anti-intellectualism, and Trump's continued war on wisdom.
This is a coordinated backlash to progress. At the end of the day, conservatives realized that they couldn't win a debate on facts. They started using our language against us, right? Remember when we were all woke and the woke movement and all that kind of stuff? Now everything is anti-woke, right? When we were talking about including diversity, equity, inclusion, higher education, now it's anti-DEI. All this are efforts to suppress the truth because truth empowers people.
You're watching The Other Side of Change, only on
Afrotech. It's a lot of beauty, a lot of brilliance, a lot of intellect, a lot of innovation.
Companies that are most diverse are more profitable.
We're getting culture, we're getting community, we're getting the best of the best.
Not only are we here to greet each other, but we're here to network and to elevate each other.
Everybody from all the major tech companies here, and that means that now everybody's in the same domain.
This is the premier event every year. This is really where we could take off. You can go fast by yourself, but we go farther together.
This is where you're supposed to be.
Next on the Black Table with me, Fred Carr. Now, the America we live in today is not what the founders intended or what they outlined in the Declaration of Independence and even the Constitution. Professor and author Kermit Roosevelt will join us to talk about his book, The Nation That Never Was. How history was misinterpreted, the intent and realities of America's beginnings, and missed a much better story in the process.
So if you have to pick some group to marginalize, I think it should be the people who are against equality.
That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Hey, I'm Tasha Cobbs, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. But I need a little filter. I need something. Blow me out. Make me look 35.
All right, folks, we're back at Vision Community Church. We got 3 candidates who are running for office. I want to introduce them. Nicole Cole. She's a member of the Spotsylvania County School Board. She is running for Virginia's House of Delegates. Nicole 66. Nicole?
Yes, sir.
What's
it's
happening?
Great to be here. Hello there.
All good. That's all right then. Joshua Cole. He, of course, second-term delegate. And he, of course, represents the city of Fredericksburg and parts of Stafford and Spotsylvania counties. Give it up for Joshua. All right, folks. And last but certainly not least, Stacey Carroll. Stacey, what's happening?
Hello.
Celebrating her recent court victory after a Stafford County, Virginia Circuit Court judge dismissed a lawsuit to remove her from the November ballot.
Say that again. Dismissed. Clock it.
Frivolous.
So that was fun.
It was absolutely fun. Not really. But seriously, that lawsuit was literally a distraction from us focusing on what really matters. As you guys know, in the court cases, they've been tailing our family or surveilling us since March. Filed the lawsuit this past August, went before the judge, presented the facts, and they dismissed the case without question. We have to ensure that we don't disenfranchise voters. By the time the case was brought to us, ballots had already been printed and certain people had started to cast their vote. So we have to ensure, and we will continue to work, that every voter in the 64th district hears and gets the opportunity to make their voices heard this coming November.
So what is your focus?
My focus is education, specifically the children. In Stafford County, we have nearly 200 kids that are unhoused, specifically homeless, and Stafford County has about 45% of their students that are on free and reduced lunch. Though Stafford County is one of the wealthiest counties, specifically in the entire nation, specifically for black wealth, the average black household in Stafford County is $147,000 to our white counterparts at $135,000. There are pockets of poverty in Stafford County that we have to make sure that no child goes hungry. And when they get inside of the classroom, they can actually focus and do the work so that they can excel in education.
Joshua, you get to go back. What's the goal?
Thank you, Roland. I'm excited to have you back in Fredericksburg in the 65th District. Our focus this year, we absolutely have to focus on housing. Whether we have hungry kids in the schools, we also have unhoused kids in the schools. And so I introduced legislation this past session that would give first-time homebuyers $10,000 in their first-time payment for their homes. We also introduced legislation to protect renters. We are finding out now in the Fredericksburg region, you are going to go find a home. The landlord is charging you first month rent and a security deposit, which is reasonable, but now they're also charging you the final month rent and saying that you have to make 3 times your mortgage or your rent in order to even qualify to get into a home.
Wow.
So we put in legislation that said that is not going to be allowed to happen, and of course our governor vetoed that legislation, so we need a new governor so we can pass it again.
Stacey, Ms. Nicole.
So I am fighting for education as well, but I'm fighting for the money. We need to modernize the funding formula in Virginia so that all of the needs of our students in our schools are funded, not just the staff funding.
So for the folks who don't know, what is the funding formula in the state?
It's a staff-based funding formula. So based off of how many teachers are needed for the students that we have in our schools versus a needs-based student funding formula that looks at what are the needs of our students. We have about 15% across Virginia in our public schools of students who have special education needs. Those needs are more costly than general education needs. And so the same dollar is not going to educate that child as the dollar that's spent on a child getting a general academic education. And so Virginia is behind in the national average of funding our schools. And so we need to move to a better formula to make sure that we have enough staff to educate our kids regardless of their needs, their educational needs, regardless of their background or economic status. And so that's what I want to make sure that we pass, which is something that the Democratic House supported, House of Delegates supported in Virginia, but again, the governor, being Republican, did not support that level of funding. So I am looking forward to being there and pushing it again with a supportive governor that will make sure that our kids get what they need.
So much of what go ahead. So much of what we're seeing right now, really, when we look at all these elections, are quality of life issues. Obviously, healthcare is a tremendous issue, education as well. But to your point, the housing issue, right now, this is the largest gap we've had in terms of the number of available houses, and folk can't afford it. Also, I was just seeing the story before I even came in here. The average age of a new buyer went from 48 to 56. And so what that says is, and historically you had folks when they entered their 30s and 40s, that's when they became homeowners. But it's become so expensive, they can't become homeowners. And so what more can the state do to impact this here? Because you got, to your point, landlords, you've got developers, you've got all of these folks who want tax incentives to build so-called affordable housing that's really not affordable.
I think one of the major things that we're looking at right now is a lot of red tape on the local level. You have developers who want to come in, and you'll have conversations, and they say, we want to build affordable housing, but by the time they put in the paperwork and it's approved, the cost has already gone up.
But also, you got to define what affordable means, because I cover city government, and the reality is, I saw this firsthand. A lot of developers want to come in, they want to build these so-called mixed-use communities that have all of these shops and restaurants, and they really are appealing to only high-income people. And I literally had to deal with city council members who were all excited about it. I'm like, no, but look at that number. What's the salary range they're trying to target? In a lot of cases, it wasn't folk who looked like us.
Absolutely. We see in downtown Fredericksburg, Fredericksburg has my heart, right? But you have these condominiums that pop up. You have these townhouses that pop up, which are over $1 million even to get into it. A townhome that's $1 million. We have been discussing legislation for the past 2 years, a piece of legislation called the Yes in God's Backyard, which would allow churches and certain nonprofit organizations to bypass the rezoning aspect in order to build affordable housing or senior housing on their properties. You have large churches who may have large parking lots that are not being fully utilized. They could put affordable housing on those parking lots. Or you have churches who have land. They would love to utilize that land, but they can't because every time they go to the county, it's taken 1 year, 2 years to get approval, and the cost has gone up. So if we're able to give that ability to get rid of some of that red tape, bypass that rezoning aspect in conjunction with what the counties have already approved for, we can get more affordable units. And when I say affordable, I'm not just talking about public housing, but we're talking about workforce housing. If you live in an area, if you work in an area, you should also be able to afford to live in the area. And the reason that housing is so expensive here in Fredericksburg area is because a lot of people work in Washington, D.C. And so people have been moving down here for the past 30, 40 years. People have been moving into the Fredericksburg area, which has caused housing to go up. And now people are being priced out of Fredericksburg and they're going down to Caroline. That's what's going to make it easier for her to win this November, right? So people are going down into Caroline and going down to Louisa, and people are being further away from their jobs when we need affordable units where people work.
Go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, when you say, okay, what's affordable? When I was knocking the door, I had a young lady who is in nursing school at Gerrymandering Community College, living in what's supposed to be an affordable apartment complex in Spotsylvania, and she was paying for a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, $2,300. Now,
2 bed, 1 bath?
2-bedroom.
Girl, you gonna make me cuss in church.
$2,300. Now, I'm a financial advisor, and so I see firsthand where the incomes of our public servants, our young adults, when I say public servants, our teachers, our deputies, when affordable would be 30% or less of their income, of the average income of a public servant in our community. That way, we could make it affordable. And I have a teacher who called me and said, you know, I'm not going to be able to stay employed in Spotsylvania County Public Schools. I'm going to have to go to Stafford and work because my landlord is increasing, we just got a letter, and increasing my rent by $300 a month. That is insane when we don't even have a cost of living adjustment for teachers, that their living expenses are going up such that they can't even work in our local communities. So we have to make sure that we make a barrier for what is affordable in our area, and also make sure that the local boards of supervisors are held accountable for managing this and not delaying the process, because I did have developers say to me, you know, what's supposed to be a 2-year project is becoming a 5-year project because they're circumventing the laws that we have on the books that make it take longer, and they have to recoup their investment.
So for the affordable housing, I'll go a little deeper, and I'll say specifically policy, because I know it's not just a policy. How many of y'all are familiar with the Real Page lawsuit? It was a lawsuit filed by the Biden administration that talked a little bit about the price gouging that was happening from realtors, specifically apartment complexes, and how they were astronomically increasing the price for rent for renters in the entire nation. The Biden administration took them on. We need an attorney general here in the state that's going to make sure that that doesn't happen to Virginia residents, because that's where it starts. That's where it starts. I want to make $1 too. I want to profit. But we have to be mindful about how we profit, right? And we saw from, let's just say, 2020 to now, we've seen as a renter, we've seen prices go up from 1 month to some 300. I've seen some as much as 700, right? So that's where it starts, right? Then it also includes us collaborating with our local partners to ensure that, again, the first years of my life, I lived in apartment complexes. That's where we start out, right? We create or provide, again, finance major, supply and demand. We have to increase the supply to make sure, without question, people actually can afford and have a place to go. Though I love visiting Caroline County, if I am a young individual that's traveling to and from Washington, D.C., because that's where the job is, then becomes my quality of life and my stressors and other factors that inhibit my ability to just be nice sometimes. If that makes sense, right? If I work an 8-hour shift, I got to go into the office every day. I'm traveling on the highway at least 3 hours of that day. Where's my opportunity to entertain my children, take them to and fro, or even go to grocery store or cook a well-balanced meal at night, right? So I think there are a lot of other things that we can tackle to make sure that from an affordability perspective, we address it so that the whole quality of life of a person or resident of Stafford County, or specifically here in this region, is positively affected.
Role that you see the state playing when it comes to health care. We obviously are seeing the battle on the federal government when it comes to Affordable Care Act subsidies. A lot of people are freaking out because they're seeing those subsidies go away. It's going to be some explosive health care rates that happens. If they don't have that Affordable Care Act, that's going to now put stress on the county health system. And now we're back to seeing the problems that we saw pre-ACA.
I was privileged in January. The speaker put together a special emergency committee to deal with the impacts of the federal government in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I was blessed to be a part of that committee. We traveled all over the state, and what we're already seeing, Roland, is in Southwest Virginia that overwhelmingly voted red. They didn't vote ruby red, they voted maroon, right? There have already been 3 clinics that have closed in Southside Virginia, with a target of 6 hospitals that are slated to be shut down as well in rural parts of the state. And so as a part of that committee, we are trying to determine what are we going to do to save our budget when the impacts of the federal government hit the Commonwealth of Virginia. We know many of you in the room right now are currently furloughed. How many of you ever heard of the state Virginia or state employees being furloughed? You don't, because we're required by our state constitution to produce a balanced budget every 2 years. So when we lose the money from the federal government, regardless of what happens, we're the ones. Whoever is our next governor and whoever is in the General Assembly come January, their work is cut out for them, because we have to figure out how to manage all of the pitfalls that this federal government is taking money back, how we have to manage that budget, and how we have to support folks on Medicaid. We did the Medicaid expansion in 2018. Now there's over 500,000 people in the Commonwealth of Virginia who are on Medicaid who are poised to lose their insurance, regardless of what Nappyhead said, that they're not going to lose their insurance. But we have to make sure that these people are keeping their insurance. And that's a responsibility that we as a state government have to do.
And even on the Medicaid, people don't understand that a number with, especially with expanded Medicaid, a number of our children are on Medicaid. And that will create a burden for our schools where there's an expectation that our schools are providing the services that these kids need, whether they're getting fed, whether they're getting their medication at school, whether they're getting their speech services, whether they're getting mental health services. All of that burden is put on our public schools, and then again, we're not getting the funding that we need. So that gap for Medicaid for our kids is going to come back on our schools as well. And so, there has to be an answer, and it's not going to be an easy one. We're going to have to be real creative when we get in office.
I would say beyond creative.
Girl, turn your phone off. She's watching the show on her phone. We are live.
It's okay. Hey, girl, hey, we see you. I would say being creative.
I hear everything. Go ahead.
I would say being creative is an understatement. We have to be creative and strategic. Because even before some of the Medicaid cuts that we know are coming, our current Medicaid system has problems. And I say that as a foster mom. I have a foster son that has been on the waiting list to get inside of a specialty provider for the last 9 months. God forbid something happens, we're still waiting to be able to get an appointment and schedule. The appointment just got scheduled for the first week in December, right? So even before the specific cuts that my future colleague was just talking about, we have to be mindful that we have to be strategic. Stacey, what's the definition of being strategic? We know, specifically speaking, that a nurse anesthetist goes through an extensive training from a master's level program to be able to understand how to administer drugs or medicine to those that are currently in surgery. Right now, there's legislation that we could craft to make it easier to have nurse anesthetists stand in the gap in some of the rural hospitals to be able to perform the necessary procedures. Currently, right now, it's required that a medical doctor, someone with an MD, be present to sign off, even if they don't have the credentials to be able to understand, right? So from a legislative perspective, there are things that we can do that make it easier for people that have the credentials and have the training to be able to do their job. Right. We've done it, specifically speaking, the General Assembly did it as it relates to my profession as a CPA, made it easier for young candidates such as myself to come out and become licensed. I think we should do so specifically as it relates to healthcare and making healthcare access easier, specifically for those people that may not want to live in the rural areas, but incentivize those that do and provide it easier for them to be able to support the patients in that area.
All right, that's a good one there. All right. When you've been going door to door, what are the folks been saying to you that they want? What's the most common thing you're hearing?
Well, there's a sore spot in Spotsylvania and Caroline County, but especially in Spotsylvania in education, because we had an extremist board my first 2 years on the board, and they did a lot of things to damage the quality of education that we are trying to deliver in Spotsylvania.
You had one of the Moms for Liberty board?
Yes, absolutely. We had the Burn Books board member on my board, okay, who was the chair of the board. And
Burn the books, who couldn't read the book.
Burn the books.
Go ahead.
And they hired a unqualified superintendent who actually did ban 37 books from our school system. The only thing that reversed that was working in the background to identify candidates to run for office in 2023 who were pro-public school candidates and supporting them to win their races so that we could flip the board back to something that was actually, to a board who was actually going to work in the best interests of our kids. So we have to make sure that, so at the doors, because our community remembers that. They remember the pain of that. They remember me being the fighter to make sure that I was holding those elected officials who had the majority accountable and worked and started a pact to be able to flip the board so that we could then unban the books. It took, even though we had people coming out complaining about the books being banned, it took flipping the board to have the power to unban the books. So when you have an extremist majority like we have now in the federal government, we have to, as people, come out, yes, and protest. But in Virginia, we have the opportunity this year to vote for people like me, again, Josh Cole and Stacey Carroll, in order to flip these seats so that we can make decisions that will be good for the people in our community.
And again, the point there is, you can't just complain about what they are doing and what needs to happen. The way to impact that, you actually have to use the power of the vote to take them out. When you go door to door, what are the folks telling you?
Absolutely hearing about housing, the cost of housing, but also, as I've been knocking on doors for the past 2 or 3 weeks or so, I've been encountering federal workers who are either furloughed or who were ripped from their positions or living in uncertainty if they're going to work today, will they have a job come tomorrow? And so I think that it's extremely important as we look at the elections that we're facing this year, we have the opportunity to elect a former congresswoman who has served during the former Trump administration, who knows what it means to fight against what he's doing, but then put that together with the experienced legislators that we already have in Richmond who know how to navigate the state system, bringing us together to push back against this second Trump administration, bringing good paying jobs, because a lot of the governor released a website, says Virginia has jobs. Yes, Virginia does have jobs, but many of you federal workers who have been let go are overqualified for those jobs and still can't get hired. And so we need someone who's going to bring jobs to the Commonwealth, who are going to be able to say, you may have lost your job as a federal worker, good, we're going to bring this other job here that you are qualified for that's going to pay you equitably to what you were used to be making, and you're going to still keep your pension. Because many people were losing that when they lost their jobs, and this is what people in the Fredericksburg area are complaining about and are worried about.
So I would have to say I hear more than just when I'm on the doors, because you name it, I'm at the commuter lots at 5:30 in the morning aggravating people. I see people in the grocery stores at the
You where at 5:30 in the morning?
At the commuter lots. Catching people, I talk to Ring cameras.
5:30 in the morning?
Yes. Wherever you are, I am. Yes.
I'm going to sleep at 5:30 in the morning.
No, I'm at 5:30 in the morning. I'm at the commuter lot saying, good morning. Had you would have opened that door and talked to me, we could have did this at 6 p.m., but now we're doing it at 5:30 a.m., right? I've been in every space or place, whether it be the masjid, the mosque, or a church, whether it be white or black, predominantly, just talking to people. And the one thing that I consistently hear is they want to preserve what they've built for generations to come, is one specific thing that I've heard. And whether that be, and specifically speaking, we know the black wealth here in Stafford County, but there's a lot of federal workers and contractors that I've encountered here more recently at home as well. And a lot of them are concerned about how or where the next paycheck or when the next opportunity is going to open up, specifically speaking. I know because when I was offered the opportunity to take a federal job, I declined because the salary offer was less than in the private sector. So I know firsthand that a lot of federal workers took a job decrease for the stability that the federal government offers. So when I hear people, I talk about how they talk to me about how they're changing their current plans, whether it be for vacation or Christmas, they're changing some of their thoughts of where they would go, or they even send their kids to college, on how specifically without just this federal shutdown, just in general for the next 3 years and 2.5 months, how they will adjust their lives to adjust to this current unstable administration.
I'm still stuck on that 5:30 in the morning. You ain't talking to me at 5:30. I'm trying to get on this doggone train to go to sleep.
If you saw me at the commuter lot, raise your hand. Ow!
Bet you were trying like, girl, I'm trying to go take a nap. Don't go on. Go on.
Every space in place. That's where I'm at.
Last question for you before I go to the break. And there's somebody who's watching. Doesn't matter. They could be young, middle-aged. They can be a seasoned saint. And they're like, okay, I hear all of that stuff, but I ain't feeling none of that. What do you say to them? So you rocking your little team. So you got jerseys and everything. Yeah, she got Team Nicole 66. I bet you got jerseys and all kinds of. Yeah, I got you. Okay, we got your own cheerleading squad, huh? Okay. All right. So what would you say to that person who says, "Man, this voting stuff, I just don't feel it. I don't see it. I don't think it matters to me." What do you tell them?
Yeah, and unfortunately, I have seen that this past week on the doors too many times. With African Americans. And, one door knocked, gentleman said, I'm not political. And I said, look, I don't need you to be political. I need you to vote for me so I can be political for you. Because I am going to be the one that is representing this community. And I am running against someone who has been in office for 35 years, okay? And he has not been supporting you or the issues and what's important to you, your family, and our community here in Spotsylvania and Caroline County. And in order for me to be political for you and fight for you to get what you need and what we need in this community, I need you to vote for me. And what people don't understand, and I say this from the dais on school board all the time, is you absolutely need to be political. It only takes, and I've seen it, it only takes one person to come up to the podium in public comment and say, hey, this is something that I want. And we can, as elected officials, be like, okay, Dr. Mitchell, can you get your staff to work on this and bring it back to us as a policy, and then we vote on it. That's it. But when you don't show up, because I have complained over the years that we aren't showing up in school board meetings, and I beg, my sorority sisters know, I beg you to come to school board meetings to let us know what you need and what we need in this community.
What sorority is that?
Alpha Kappa Alpha.
Y'all better wake up. You said you begged them? Did they show up?
But the Deltas did show up.
Of course we did.
I do have some of my I'm not going to lie.
So you saying your sisters didn't show up? Cut them deep.
My sisters show up in different ways.
No, see, that's a political answer.
Hey, they're showing up to me now at early voting in Caroline. I've had my sorority sisters come where we have not had people welcoming people at early voting in Caroline for years. I've had sorority sisters and your fraternity, my brothers, my first family.
We gonna show up, baby. Let's
show up.
First of all, service of all, we shall transcend all. Let's be real clear, right. Gary.
To show up, to show up and greet people at the polls when they go to vote, because as you said earlier in the earlier panel, people still don't know what district that they're in. People don't know who's on the ballot. And when we have someone there to greet them and say, hey, Nicole, what district are you in? You don't know. Let me help you. If you're in District 66, Nicole Cole is on your ballot and she's going to fight for you, and I need you to vote for her. And they're coming out and they're saying, we voted Cole. So I don't even remember. What was the question?
You answered it. You answered. I got you. Well, first of all, but also I think what we have to explain to people, because again, when you don't know, you don't know.
You got to advocate for
we got to
yourself.
explain to people get them to understand that there's no facet of their life that government does not play a role. Right. And so the notion that I'm not political, that's fine, but trust me, government impacts your life. Right. What do you say to that person?
What I think we've all been looking for is people with power to get some sense, and people with sense to get some power. Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, I love the quote. She said, the people who are closest to pain should be the closest to the power. And we're now living in a reality where people are like saying, I'm not concerned about politics. It's too convoluted. You have at it. You do what you're going to do. But this is where I challenge you. You don't care about politics, but your landlord does, and that's why your rent is high. You don't care about politics, but your insurance company does, and that's why your premiums are high. You don't care about politics, but your job does, and that's why your pay is not high. And so we are looking at people who don't care, but politics is involved in everything around you. And if we got to be like Shirley Chisholm. If you don't have a seat at the table, you better bring up a folding chair and make a place there. And so we all have been fighting. And we all need to encourage someone else to fight, because if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And it's time out for us being on the menu. We're about to march down to Richmond and flip the executive mansion, expand our majority in the House of Delegates, get that attorney general seat, and we're about to make the menu.
All right, closes out.
And that settles it. The only other thing I would add to what, see, you never come behind a preacher, but the only thing that I would add to what...
Yeah, a little hard to preach at 5:30 in the morning.
And I was up at 4:30 this morning. But no, I find a way to relate to them. I tell them when they look at my credentials now, I look so accomplished and so polished, and I remind them that I started out and I got pregnant when I was a junior in high school. That young man now was a junior at Morehouse College. And I tell them about that because I remind them that I didn't miss a day at school, and it was government programs that paid for him to go to daycare while I still was able to go to high school and finish on time. And I remind them of various ways that the government can help them stand up. And the only way that those programs are fully funded and in effect is if we got the right people in those offices advocating, because I'm a benefit of a generation that advocated prior to me. And though I stand and I will advocate for them, even if they choose not to vote, because I will remind them of all the things that Josh Cole and Nicole Cole just said. But if in case they don't, I still walk away and I still try to remind them that, hey, you look at me now, but I promise you, politics cares about you.
Put your hands together for Nicole, Joshua, Stacy. Gonna go to a break. We'll be right back. Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Fred Carr. Why the America we live in today is not what the founders intended or what they outlined in the Declaration of Independence and even the Constitution. Professor and author Kermit Roosevelt will join us to talk about his book, The Nation That Never Was. How history was misinterpreted, the intent and realities of America's beginnings, and missed a much better story in the process.
So if you have to pick some group to marginalize, I think it should be the people who are against equality.
That's next on the Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Afrotech, it's a lot of beauty, a lot of brilliance, a lot of intellect, a lot of innovation.
Companies that are most diverse are more profitable.
We're getting culture, we're getting community, we're getting the best of the best. Not only are we here to greet each other, but we're here to network and to elevate each other.
Everybody from all the major tech companies here, and that means that now everybody's in the same domain.
This is the premier event every year. This is
I need my
really
microphone
where we
up. All right, folks,
off.
we're coming back from break.
Fast by yourself, but we go farther together.
This is where you're supposed to be.
Get to serve his community. That's why Josh is fighting to lower costs for families hurting from inflation and make sure we can all afford quality health care. But Sean Steinway has embraced his MAGA backers who support Trump's mass firing of federal workers and the MAGA plan to ban abortion with no exceptions. We deserve better than Sean Steinway.
I'm Josh Cole, candidate for delegate, and I sponsored this ad.
Nicole Cole knows the cornerstone of a successful life starts here. Virginia Public Schools gave Nicole an excellent education. They helped her become a small business owner, family financial planner, mother, and community leader. Now, after 4 years on the Spotsylvania School Board, Nicole is running for delegate to meet the needs of all students. As our delegate, Nicole will fully fund our schools, raise teacher salaries, and help graduating students stay in our communities. Nicole Cole for delegate. For us, for our future.
In the military, I gave orders, and they went a lot further than they do around here. If there's one thing I've learned as a mom and foster parent of more kids than I can count, investing in their future isn't a choice. In Richmond, I'll fight for Stafford's fair share for our schools. Smaller class sizes, better teacher pay, and more vocational training. I'm Stacey Carroll, and I'll fight to get our kids' future in order.
Melanie Campbell, National Coalition on Black Civic Participation, the Black Women's Roundtable. And we are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered all day, every day, 24/7. Spread the word.
House Republicans remain.
All right, folks, we're back. Great Community Church. Let me shout out before we chat with Bishop. You saw the drop there, Melanie Campbell, right now in D.C. They're celebrating what? My mic is on. Green means on. Okay, well, fix the mic problem. My mic says green. All right, I'm saying, it's the same mic I've been using. Don't turn off the one I've been using. That's the last mic y'all should be turning off. All right. Before we came back from break, you saw Melanie Campbell. Of course, she leads the National Coalition of Black Civic Participation. As we speak right now, I couldn't attend her event. They're celebrating her 30 years in activism. And so she's been doing a phenomenal job with the coalition, also the co-convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. And so Melanie's been one of the folks on the front lines all across this country, really galvanizing, organizing folks, young people, men, women as well. Again, one of our unsung heroes when we talk about voting in this country, when we talk about public policy. It's a lot of bigger names that get the attention, but again, Melanie has been doing a phenomenal job. So I hate I could not be at her event tonight in Washington, D.C., celebrating her 30 years leading the National Coalition. But y'all give it up for Melanie Campbell, the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation. Folks, we're here at the church here. Bishop Ron Wills joins us right now. Bishop, how you doing?
Good, and yourself, Roland? Thank you.
So let's talk about the first panel we talked about, again, the role that the church can play. And we also are dealing now with a completely different, if you will, position that we're in. Even before COVID, we have seen a drop in church attendance. The role that the church plays is not the same that it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. Right. And so what role do you see the church playing? We're seeing white conservative evangelicals now get the IRS to change the rules where they can now endorse candidates and talk politics from the pulpit, whereas before you could not. And so what role do you see the church, specifically black churches, playing in the political world today?
One of the things, that's a great question. One of the things that I'm discovering, there's been a shift with the young people, trying to reach them where they are. And so we have these conversations now that we need to get them more engaged in the church because of meeting them where they are. And while we see this trend of the Gen Zs and Xs and stuff that are coming, they're coming for different reasons. And so I believe what the church needs to do today is meet people where they are and help them understand why we teach what we teach and stand on that principle. Because the question is, they're not challenging us. They just want to know what's going on.
Well, they also are demanding the church be focused on different things. And again, if you break down numbers, and if you look at any political scientist will tell you, voters that are 65 and older who are African American politically self-identify as Democrat. Then when you go down further, 55 to 64, numbers still self-identify. Once you go below 55, that begins to drop off. Now, a person who is 18 to 35, 39, 45, they may not self-identify. They're likely going to vote Democrat. But then you have an increasing number of folk, really beginning with Gen X. I hate the fact that Gen X was the only demographic that voted majority for Trump. I don't know what we were thinking. Right. But what you're dealing with there, and this is a conversation that is very hard for people to understand. When you look at Gen X, that's that first generation coming after the Civil Rights Movement, you now are having African Americans who are coming out of college who are making more money than their parents did. Correct. So they're having issues or having conversations about things parents never talked about before. You didn't have many black parents talking about the top tax bracket. What few of us were near the top tax bracket. We start talking about capital gains, investments, things along those lines. So I think also we have to recognize how education, the economics is also changing the politics and is demanding more of politicians and the black church and others to be able to speak to folks as to where they are, to say, hey, why should I support this person or this party?
Right. And so, and with that being said, one of the things I think the church needs to do is that we, since we now, we don't talk about politics like we did before, that we should be talking more about
Or I'll say this here, I should take politics out. The church has to be speaking to contemporary issues. Right. Politics plays a role in it. And so, fine, it can't be a D/R conversation, but it has to be an issue-driven conversation, right, because you are impacted by that particular issue.
Right, absolutely. One of the things that I know that I have done that has been open a lot of in the church, we have what we call forums. And in our forums, we talk about today's issues, what's really going on in today. And I have discovered that people have a voice. They want to know, let's talk about the real stuff that's really going on. And for too long, it's been taboo that we talk about. One of the things is like mental health. When we talk about mental health, we look at mental health as being quasi the stigma. But we all are suffering, but we don't want to talk about it. So we have to learn at the church to talk about real issues and be not so sensitive and get so defensive that we can't hear each other's perspective.
But mental health also has a political side because that speaks to resources, whether it's school district, whether it's city, whether it's county, all of that. And so again, to me, that's where I think the connecting the dots has to take place. Earlier when Pam was talking about how we have to be having these civic classes, to me, there should be, it could be a rotating thing, but I would suggest that if you've got 10, 20 churches, and then they say, hey, we're going to rotate this thing week to week to week so people can come and actually learn. And I keep telling everybody, make this thing as basic as possible. Literally say City Hall 101, School District 101, State Government 101, because a lot of people really don't know. And the reason I come at that from this perspective because my parents were co-founders of a civic club. Okay. And so they had 5 kids. And so here we were, 8, 9, 10, free labor, having to pass out pamphlets and put up signs. But the reality is, so I saw politics not from a 30,000-foot level, not from a political, I literally saw it from a neighborhood, how do we get this house, abandoned house torn down? How do we get these overgrown lots cut? How do we get, so that's how I grew up watching politics. Speaking before the city council when I was in the 10th grade, challenging city council members on the closing of cutting of pool hours when I was in the 8th grade. We had a council member, we had a church bazaar, I was born and raised Catholic, and he was like, I don't know. He's like, who kid? Like, I was jamming Eugene McGowan up. And again, because it was about public policy. And so I think that's where we have to be. We literally are going to have to teach folk civics because we got a lot of folk who ain't got no clue about how any of this stuff works.
Right. Also, one of the things that I believe in stuff is collaboration. We don't want to talk about the real issues. As churches, we need to, and I know pastors, a lot of pastors are here, but we need.
Are you a pastor? Stand up.
If you're a pastor, stand up.
Don't be scared.
There's one back there. Amen.
All right, waving back there. All right, cool. Okay, go ahead.
But one of the things that is we need to have more collaboration and quit thinking about competition, separation. We are the church. We're supposed to be one. And so I don't care who takes the lead. I just want to be on the team and help our community and help our people. Where now it's so divisive and with that. So if we're divisive, what do you think is going to happen to the people? If they don't see us come together, what's going to happen with them?
But the collaboration also, again, this is where I go back to what the data says. Like, for instance, I really hate, listen, I see Alphas here, I see other folks here. I really do hate most people's voter get out the vote programs. I think most people programs are trash.
Okay.
Here's why I say that. Because they're trying to be macro and not micro. All right? So if you take this election, so is it Kimberly Pope Adams, right? So Petersburg, we were there, Virginia State on Thursday. So 2 years ago, she lost by 53 votes. Okay? Petersburg, black folks didn't turn out in Petersburg. So if I'm looking at data, what I'm looking at is I'm saying, okay, if I'm in Fredericksburg, where are the top 10, 15 black voting precincts? So I want to know number of eligible voters. I want to know number of registered voters. I want to know who turned out in the last election. The data actually is public. You can pull it up and know exactly who turned out, who didn't. And so what happens is we have these voter registration drives at all these different places, and I always go, okay, well, how many people did you register? How many people literally came through? As opposed to saying, how about you take that, forget the game or forget the concert, and literally take that registration drive to that particular neighborhood, because you might actually have 400 people who are eligible but are not registered. So now, are you going door to door? Are you doing, and that's why when I was saying earlier, that black infrastructure we had, folk knew their precinct. Right. Yeah. They knew the numbers. They knew who didn't turn out. And if you take 10 precincts, and if you literally add 50 more voters per precinct, that's 500 votes. That changes elections. Now you take that, and then you go across the state, and all of a sudden, you can shift statewide elections with that very basic micro model. That, to me, is how churches should be collaborating, by saying, if we need to add 50 to 100, you got 10 churches, that means that your job is to just go register 10 people. Right. And you 10. That's all I'm asking you to do. To me, that's the kind of collaboration that also has to happen.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I think that's the thing that we're missing. We don't have, like, what we, as pastors sometimes, and I'm guilty of that as well. As a pastor, I don't know it all. And you have to be able to go to get. And so I say this to pastors and stuff, if you don't know, go find somebody that can educate you and help you with the voter registration.
Right. And that's why you take the folks at Black Voters Matter who are out there. Again, that's one of the things that they do, bringing them in with the data. Also calling up Cornell Belcher, Terrence Woodbury, two of our top pollsters, both African-American. Terrence's work has been amazing because he does public opinion. Okay. And so one of the things that he does focus groups all the time. And what's interesting, I was talking to him, and this was in 2020. So based upon his focus groups, he said when people would use the phrase voter suppression, he said to a voter 18 to 35, they heard voter suppression and automatically thought 1964. He said, but if you said to that voter, if you didn't say voter suppression, but you said they're closing down our voting locations, that resonated more present day. Right. So the other issue is bringing in experts who can give you the proper language to be using in 2025, as opposed to you using language that you think works and is really sounding 1965 to somebody in the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Also, one of the things with
and Terrence, you should send me a check. I'd have had more people hire Terrence to give his data. He told me, he said, man, I got a lot of work for me. I'm like, so Terrence, you should be tithing, Terrence. Tithing to Roland Martin Unfiltered, Terrence Woodbury. Go ahead.
Now, with regards to that, Roland, when it comes to in voting is so critical today, because I've heard in the last segment people say, well, why should I vote? You know, why does my vote matter and stuff? And it's educating them on why their vote matters. And I want to thank you for coming to Fredericksburg again. Because this is what we need. We need to have more of these within ourselves. The question is, while it's great to have you here and having the show, the broadcast live, what are we going to do after this? Yep. because the election is coming around the corner. And so we heard from...
Well, you got the election in November,
right.
but then you're going to have elections next year. And there's going to be elections after that. And one of the things that I would suggest, not just to you, to everybody else, and I was talking to Gary Chambers in Louisiana. I was talking to, it was a couple of other young organizers, two sisters, brilliant sisters. But I was trying to explain, and they were like, Roland, but we just organized. I said, I get that. But I was trying to explain to them why they also have to utilize live streaming. I said, because if you stream that event, I said, do understand, so you take right now. So, more than 200 people in this room right now. But there are more than 4,000 watching.
Right, correct.
And then what's going to happen is we're going to take clips from what different people said today. We're going to post it on Instagram, Fanbase, Spoutable, Spill, TikTok, on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media. We're on 11 different apps. So that all of a sudden now it's going to be 40,000, 100,000. So one of the big mistakes that I believe that churches make, fraternities make, sororities make, in many groups, that we are so fixated of who showed up in the room without realizing that there's somebody who couldn't show up tonight, but they're watching and doing what they're doing while they're watching. So when you have those sessions, let's make sure that they're recorded and streamed for the person who couldn't physically be there.
To your point, I had to learn this as a pastor.
What, during COVID?
No.
Okay.
We came out of COVID, and I'm learning this now because I am accustomed and acclimated to people in the audience. Not only realizing this stuff, that when I start streaming, my numbers was going to go up. Yes. So when I start
your
streaming...
viewership numbers and your tithing numbers. You ain't want to say it. I said it. See, when he said my numbers went up, I knew what he was talking about. He didn't want to say it. I was like, I know what number you're talking about.
But I was getting frustrated because nobody was sitting here and nobody was talking to me. I'm a black preacher. Talk to me.
Hey, man, you can get somebody to have some pre-recorded amens. This is not hard. All you got to do is have somebody hit the button like, preach, pastor. Say that. I hear you. That ain't hard.
But when they showed me the numbers of how many people are online and how many the numbers was outweighing triple time, and of course the giving was up as well, it changed my mindset. So we live now of a change that you don't have to be physically in the building.
Now apply that to Civic's teaching.
Right.
Same thing.
Same concept.
Stream it as well, restream it, share it, push it out. Then what you also should be doing, you should also be collecting the data, I go back to data, of every member. Because see, here's part of the deal. If somebody over here is going, okay, bro, I hear you got 5 million, but man, I just got 238. But that 238, with that 500, and that 200, and that 100, and that 50, all of a sudden, so if you do a survey, which is also biblical, if you do a survey of the membership, you should know, okay, what is the social media footprint of my whole congregation? So what are the total followers, forget the church, the total followers of the membership on each platform? And then what you do is, you say to the membership, all right, we've already done the work for you. Here's the video. Here's the copy. Here's the caption. All you got to do is copy and paste. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to your social media. Now it's going to all of theirs as well.
Right.
That's how you now then begin to spread the message.
Yes. One of the things, another thing, Roland, I want to share, is that I've had people join through the streaming.
Yes. Yes. It's the same as Paul going from city to city. You just, the camera.
So I was taken back when a visitor who had been watching asked, could they be a member? but they was not physically located in Fredericksburg. And I was like, well, I guess so. If you've been on, if you've been watching this long,
that
I guess
ain't
you
the
did.
answer, Bishop. That ain't it. The answer is yes. But what I'm saying is, so now when you're having those civic discussions or whatever, so remember, there's somebody, they don't have to be in Fredericksburg, but if you're explaining to them public policy, I mean, I deal with it every day. People stop me in airports and they say, man, thank you. They say, thank you. I had no idea. But you explain it to us in a way that we can understand. They say, thank you. That's all they ever say. I've had people say, I ran for office because I watched you. So what I'm saying is we have to now be thinking completely different. So if you're having those discussions within the church, got to make sure it's, and so even if you don't live stream it, it's recorded and you can stream it later because there's somebody who is going to watch it. And here's the other thing, the beauty of streaming. You're going to be asleep at 3 o'clock in the morning. Somebody's going to be actually watching that video. You have no idea. They'll be like, I didn't know this. That's why I'm trying to get us as, if we talk about churches collaboration, how we have to be thinking differently about how we organize and mobilize using technology to reach and teach.
Absolutely. And so I'd like to just bring this last point up as regards to streaming and stuff. With that, there's so many opportunities with our streaming stuff. I remember when, like you said, when COVID hit, and that's before I didn't even have a camera. Didn't even have a camera. I had to run out.
Oh, trust me, preachers were calling me Marla. I did Jamal Bryant's setup. It was like hundreds of Methodist preachers. They had they didn't know what to buy. They didn't know what a Cam Link card was. They had no idea. And again, and I'll say this here, COVID was devastating for the nation, for the world, for the black community. But the silver lining was that COVID forced, and black churches, HBCUs, and others, black institutions were 10 to 15 years behind technology-wise.
Right. Yes, I will.
COVID forced every institution, because they either caught up or they died. Yeah. So it forced everybody. I mean, Tom Joyner lost millions on HBCU online because HBCUs would not see online education. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit, they had no choice.
Absolutely, and that was us.
There you go.
I mean, we went from Bible study to GoToMeeting. How many of you GoToMeeting, the software? We didn't know anything, so we were just trying everything, but we had to figure it out. And then when we did figure it out and stuff, then we started, we had to crawl, and we walked, but then we started running. And ever since then, we haven't looked back. And so a lot of times, the church is reluctant to move forward in technology.
Right. And so when the church is reluctant, the people are reluctant, which is why if the church is embracing it and pushing it and advocating it, the folk are going to say, oh, cool, because the church is validating that, and now they're going to catch up. And that's why I'm saying if we take that exact same model and apply it to civics and apply it to what's going on. And so, if 200 people can't keep up with everything, I can't keep up with everything, but if you do, to Gary's point, if you do have a committee or you have different people who say, hey, this thing is about to come up that's going to impact our city, this is not the city council meeting, it's going before this city subcommittee. Folk need to know, we need to have folks there, have someone there. And again, this is where, look, local newspapers have been crushed, so you don't have the reporting you have anymore. So imagine if you had someone who said, hey, I'm going to make sure that we're aware of what's happening at City Hall, at County. So when these things come up, you bring it back, and you're now on it on the front end versus the back end. Yeah. And again, now that you have all the social data of all your members, you can then be able to say, now, members, let's push this stuff out to all of your accounts. So now all of a sudden, you now have thousands upon people now seeing it. And then if you say, and this is the other thing that I'll give you this here. I don't sweat who don't show up. So if we call a meeting and I call 50 people and 10 show up, I'm not going to spend an hour complaining about the 40 who didn't show up. I only focus on the 10 that did show up. But then I'm going to tell the 10, y'all got to bring one next month, so we're going to go from 10 to 20. So now all of a sudden, again, if I'm using the micro model, if you say you get with 4 of the churches, now you got 5 churches. Now you do a survey. Now you know how many members, how many social media accounts, how many total followers. You literally, and this is going to blow people away. If you add up all the social media followers of just those 5 churches, I can guarantee you those 5 social media following of those 5 churches will be larger than the people who listen to the #1 radio station in town, who read the newspaper, just those 5 people. That's how we have to now understand how social has changed. So if we take those 5 churches, all their followers, folk who's sending out recipes, people who's sending out memes and sending out jokes, and if they now are sending out public policy alerts, now we've completely changed the community.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of times and I'm guilty of this as well, not having the connections that we could have, like you just said, I'm missing out on a lot of things that's going around in my city that we end up becoming reactive than proactive. And so when something goes down, then we're scattering, trying to show up. In other words, we don't, because we're not sharing. And I think that's one of the keys to stuff. You just mentioned that if it is that then we can have a strategy to move forward. Like you were talking about tonight, having strategy with that instead of being reactive when they call us.
All right, so now, so you remember the church here, raise your hand. You remember this church, raise your hand. You remember this church, raise your hand. Okay, cool. Now, so what this means, everybody here, you now have some homework. See again. You now see. I tell you, I don't play these games. So you don't have to be a member of this church. You now should be able to go back to your church and say, Pastor, I need you to see this clip. I need you to see this conversation. We need to be doing this. I need you to get with Bishop to be one of those 5. And now all of a sudden we'll build from there. That's the only way this thing changes. So I don't want folk coming in here just sitting here listening, going, amen, that's right, say that. If we are not doing anything tomorrow, then Thursday, then Friday, then next week, and building upon it, then after the election, keep this thing going, that's how we actually change our community.
I totally agree. Amen?
All right,
Amen.
So I'm going to check. Now, let me explain something to y'all. Gary know, all of the civil rights people around the country, they all know, I believe in accountability. So, you see, y'all think I'm lying. I'm going to check back in 3 months. Let me be real clear. Now, don't let me have to check back in 3 months and then nothing happened. Because I'm telling y'all, I will put everybody on blast. Matter of fact, do this here. Okay, that camera right there. I need you to walk down. No, don't point at me. I know what I look like. I need you to, Henry, go to that camera right there. Go to that camera right there. I need you to walk down it aisle. Walk all the way back. Walk all the way back. No. Walk all the way back. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. That's right. This is called a video mug shot. All right, come on back down. Come on back down. Come to me. Come to me. That's right. That's right. I'm busting everybody. If you lying, I wasn't there. No. Come right here. Come right here. Walk down the center aisle. Get everybody on video. Keep going. Don't be trying to turn y'all heads like y'all in witness protection or something. All right, come on down. Come on. Henry, don't stick on my Henry. Don't switch to me. Keep it on. I need everybody. It's a video mug shot. All right, go on down there. If y'all wave, smile. If you hear what somebody ain't supposed to be here, that is not my problem. Baby, stop covering your forehead. We see you. As you go. All right, so everybody here, you cannot lie and say you weren't here. Y'all got some homework. In 3 months, this should be done. Y'all should have the data collected, and we should start seeing the results of this. Bishop, I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you, sir.
Thanks a bunch.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I'm going to go to a quick break. We're going to come back with a panel final discussion for about 8 to 10 minutes, and we're going to shut this thing down. Folks, you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to support the work that we do. We don't have millionaires and billionaires like these right-wingers got cutting them checks. Our fan base has really been supporting us since we launched September 4th, 2018. We've had some 37,000 donors, and that's folks giving $1, $5, $10, $25. We ask our fan base to give on average $50 each a year, which is $4.19 a month, 13 cents a day. Support this show, the other 4 shows on the Black Star Network. We're launching a business show. We're launching a health show. We're launching another daily news show the next couple of months. And so we're the only, we're the largest black and the only black daily digital news show in the country. You do not have any other show in the country where African Americans are centered when we have this conversation. Nobody else is doing this. No, the larger black-owned media outlets, none of them are doing it. And so that's what you're supporting. So be sure to support our work. If you want to use Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here in the bottom left-hand corner. That's also for credit cards. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money orders. A whole bunch of y'all don't believe in no technology. So y'all got them checks and money orders, and I told y'all got to stop writing me checks and then hoping I cash it in 2 weeks. Y'all, I don't go to the mailbox. I go to the mailbox every 2 weeks. Okay, so I got to open an envelope. I got to sign the back of that check. I got to take a picture of that check. Some of the money orders don't go through. I got to send it to the bank. So y'all going to have to give brother like 60 days, okay? So you need to balance your checkbook. If you don't believe in Cash App, Zelle, PayPal, or Venmo, and you got check and money order, you got to give brother some time. And so checks and money orders, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. And see, y'all in the room, y'all laughing. Y'all actually think I'm tripping. No, I got about 50 checks and money orders in my backpack right now, and I got to go through each one. So don't y'all be sitting here laughing. That's real. All right, I'll be going to a break. I'll be right back here, Fredericksburg, Virginia. Back in a moment.
Afrotech, it's a lot of beauty, a lot of brilliance, a lot of intellect, a lot of innovation.
Companies that are most diverse are more profitable.
We're getting culture, we're getting community, we're getting the best of the best. Not only are we here to greet each other, but we're here to network and to elevate each other.
Everybody from all the major tech companies here, and that means that now everybody's in the same domain.
The premier event every year.
This is really where we could take off. You can go fast by yourself, but we go farther together.
This is where you're supposed to be.
I am Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Virginia, we're going to close it out with our final panel. I'll start right here. Gary, the thing that I need people to understand is these are perilous times that we are facing. Supreme Court last week had oral arguments in a case that could very well wipe out at a minimum 12 black CBC seats, as many as 30. In North Carolina, the Senate, they've actually passed a new map wiping out already through racist gerrymandering the seat of Don Davis. They took out several others in the last election. So people need to understand, we talk about voting. North Carolina is a perfect example. When Sherry Beasley ran for the Supreme Court, she was Chief Justice. She lost by 401 votes. You had more than 250,000 black folks in North Carolina who didn't vote. That's right. Had she won, Democrats would have had a 6-1 majority in the state Supreme Court. She lost, they had 4-3. The next election, they lost, now it's 5-2. Republicans in control. That's how they're allowing them to do racial gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering, get rid of ballot drop boxes. So folk have to understand, you can't get mad at somebody being in power and using the power when they folks vote and you didn't.
Absolutely. Most statewide elections are by the differential of unregistered votes and people who don't show up. And like you said earlier, Brother Roland, if you just take that data, then you know where to go to find the unregistered voters. To have voter registration at a mall or at a football game is to go fishing and ask the fish to jump in the boat. Ella Baker, who trained Julian Bond and Marion Wright Edelman and Stokely Carmichael from Virginia, used the community door-by-door technique. Now, that's harder. It's called canvassing. And that means you got to take a chance to go up to somebody's door and persuade them. But we can't ask for Canaan if we're not trying to go through the Red Sea. And so effort matters. And so, Roland, I'm glad you brought that point up because, you know, when we look at mobilizing people, another quote from Reverend Jesse Jackson, yes, I have 1,000 of them, but if you're not on fire, you can't give off heat. Let the church say amen.
You done?
Nope.
I thought you had 5 more Reverend Jackson statements. Michael, now, Gary brought up statewide, but this is the thing I need people to understand. We talk about gerrymandering. You have gerrymandering of state rep seats, state senate seats, congressional seats. There is no gerrymandering in statewide seats. That's just naked turnout. And so part of the biggest issue that we are seeing is that for African Americans, we're literally leaving our power at home. We are seeing all across the country where we're excited if black turnout is 48, 50, 52, 60%. I keep saying that our goal has to be wherever you have a large group of black voters, it has to be 70%. So the difference, let's just take simple math. If you have 100,000 people who are registered and 40,000 vote, that's 40,000. If 70,000 vote, that's an extra 30,000. That 30,000 alone will determine statewide who wins and who loses. And so we have to be getting our folks to understand that we are literally leaving our power at home. So we're complaining about what we're not getting. It's because we're not being activated to actually use that ballot box power.
Absolutely. You know, you talk about these different cases that have happened, and you know what I like to say is they like to either pack us or crack us. They're either going to pack us into districts where there's 85% black people in there, so that way all of the votes are congregated in there, or they're going to crack us up and such the numbers are so small that we don't actually have an opportunity to really support who it is that we're aiming for. And so a lot of times what happens is that's why people start to feel like, well, does my vote even matter? And so, yes, what I heard you talking about, Roland, talk about, it's about the total number in these statewide races. Absolutely. But one of the things that you start to realize is people don't always know the difference between all of the elections. And so what they see what happens with the presidential election is what they assume happens at the state level as well. And so a lot of times it goes back to the point of us needing to educate people on how their vote truly matters. And in an election like that, I'm telling you, you heard Roland say we want to be at 70, 75%. And I hear people say all the time, well, you know, is that realistic? Is it realistic? First off, it should be, but I'm going to tell you, you know, you're talking to the young black man who was raised by a single father next door to a drug house who grew up to be the first ever elected African-American to represent Stafford County in 350 years of his existence. So if I only believed in what people told me was realistic, my life is not a possibility. And so when I sit here and we see rooms like this, I love what you did. Make sure my man with the camera got that. He got everybody in here. He gave us all homework of what it is that we were expected to do, because that 70 to 75%, that is our new reality. And so we need everybody to do their part. Make the phone calls, knock the doors, you're riding on the bus with somebody. Brother, sister, have you voted? It's going to take each and every one of us. We need each and every one of you for us to be able to make an impact in these elections.
Philip, the late Joe Madison used to always say, you got to put it where the ghost can get it, and how to make it plain. And when Nicole was talking about going to a door and the guy said, not political, this is where we have to be smart to step back and say, okay, And I do this all the time. I don't care who it is. I'll say, what's the one thing you care about? And they look at me and they're like, what do you mean? I say, what's the one thing you care about? I had a brother who asked me that question. He said, education. I said, all right, you got kids? He said, yeah. I said, well, what grade? He had 2 kids in elementary school. I said, you in the PTA? He said, no. I said, now I'm confused. I said, you just told me that education was your number one thing. I said, you don't even belong to the PTA at your kid's school. So how is it your number one priority? And the brother looked at me, he said, dang, man, I ain't never thought about that. I'm like, precisely. I said, so if you don't care enough about your kid's school, why should I care and I ain't got no kids? He need to so part of this thing that we have to do, we have to make politics and issues personal to people and not in this abstract, in Richmond, in D.C., not realizing that, no, your electric bill is political. Your water bill is political. Everything is, and walk somebody through, and they're going to look at us like, man, what you talking about? Well, that electric rate is set by government. See, they are not the average person understanding that. So I think that's how we have to be approaching this. We got to make it as personal as possible to every person. Final comment, go ahead.
Well, one thing we need to start doing as African Americans, we need to start looking in the mirror, and we need to start walking it like we talk it. We talk it all day long. Oh, I need this. We need to do that. We need to do that. We need to do this. And where's the we at? The we gets up and then you sit at home. You got, if you really want to, look, these people are putting energy in your oppression. Let me say that again. They're putting energy in their oppression. Their churches are sitting there working hard to get their people out so they can oppress you. And if you can't fight your way out of that, then you got to start looking in the mirror. You know, Harriet Tubman said, what? I freed 1,000 slaves, freed 1,000 more if they'd only known they were slaves. They're coming for you. They're coming for your vote. They're coming for your houses. They're coming for your education. They're wiping black education out of schools. And all we do is sit back and what? So folks have got to start getting up and getting angry. You know, I watched this show called American Gods. And there was one scene where this black god, you know, was talking to these slaves in the bottom of this boat and letting them know that, you know, what's looking forward to them for the next 400 years ain't much. And there's a scene where the slaves get angry and they're ready to take over the ship. And I can't say the word that he used, but he said, anger gets done. So if you can't get anything else, get angry. Get angry at what we're seeing out here. How can you sit here and watch all this going on out here today and not be angry? You know, let's get some passion in the game. And this one last thing I want to add is you have to be able to reach in your pocket and come up with some money to help people to get the organizations in place to do the work. Money is the other element of this. What Roland said about organizing, and you should be talking to this guy, you should also be finding out who's registering people and make sure that you're funding those people.
I tell people all the time why we got to support Black Voters Matter, because they're doing the work in communities all across the country. Let's thank our panel. Let's thank our elected officials. I don't even know. I don't know where I was. They gave me this hoodie. I don't even know who. People give me stuff all the time. But they gave me, it said, Black men vote with purpose. And one of the things that we're always doing, one of the things that I'm always doing are encouraging, come on, give me a shout out of the shirt. We're always encouraging people to understand how we have to be communicating with each other. And when we look at numbers, Black women are turning out in significant numbers. And I hear brothers complain about Black girl magic, this, that, and the other. Well, guess what? Brothers can mobilize too. Sisters did it themselves. So, and I think part of the problem, if a lot of Black men want to be honest, is that one of the reasons why a lot of Black men aren't mobilizing, because we depend on Black women to do the work. That's just the fact. So what people need to understand is that we all got to be in this game. I don't care if, so you have elections happening in Virginia. We should be turning out in massive ways. Again, if 54 folks had voted, Kimberly Pope Adams wins last time. The black numbers in Petersburg were awful. They should be off the charts this election. When you talk about, again, having a Jay Jones as Attorney General, when you look at what happened right now, Kwame Raoul, Attorney General in Illinois. You have Anthony Brown in Maryland. You've got Aaron Ford in Nevada. You've got a sister in Massachusetts. You've got black attorneys general who will put Tish James in New York State, who are bringing issues to bear that ordinarily got ignored when Kamala Harris was, of course, Attorney General in California. When you talk about, of course, the racism in appraisals, how African Americans, the estimated is that black people have lost upwards of $10 billion because of racism in home appraisals. Black folks having to take their books and photos and artwork off the walls because white appraisers are downgrading a black home, having nothing to do with the house, but for them knowing that somebody black lives in the house. That thing is real. And so I need all of us, everybody who's watching, who's listening, to understand that we have got to be talking to everybody. And again, I keep saying our minimum number is 70%. We have to be maximizing our numbers in order to have an impact. And so don't complain about it, be about it. Don't just talk about it. You got to put in the work. And so that should be happening. Early voting continues in this state through November 1st, correct? All right. So no excuses, folks. Election day is November 4th. We're going to be in Virginia Beach and Suffolk on November 3rd. So look forward to that broadcast. And so look forward to that. And so you see the data right here. The deadline to register to vote, update your registration, is October 24th. Deadline to ask for a ballot to be mailed to you is also October 24th. Last day of in-person early voting is Saturday, November 1st. Election day takes place on Tuesday, November 4th. And so please take advantage of that. If you're in New Jersey, there are other local elections happening all across the country. So check the early voting deadline in your state. Check all the deadlines in your state, because again, they differ depending upon the state you're in. Let me thank the folks. We thank Bishop and the folks here at Vision for allowing us to be able to broadcast from here. We appreciate all the hospitality. Thank all of y'all for coming out as well. Y'all got some homework, and so let's get to work. I'll see y'all tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered, right here on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, support our work. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to our work, use Cash App, use a Stripe QR code or credit card. Use that QR code. You see the bottom left-hand corner. And, of course, if you're listening, go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com for the QR code. PayPal's R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo's RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Checks and money order, make it payable to P.O. Box 5, Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Also, be sure to download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Be sure to get a copy of my book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. Available bookstores nationwide. I got some here as well. And, of course, get the audio version I read on Audible. If you want to get our Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, please do so by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Also, if you go to that website, you see all of the different products. Those are all black-owned companies. We've been partnering, and so we certainly appreciate all of them participating with us. And, of course, we also want you to support the app Fanbase. Download the social media app if you want to invest. They've raised $13.4 million of their Series A raise. The goal is $17 million. And so, again, if you want to support that, go to startengine.com/fanbase. Startengine.com/fanbase. All right, y'all, that's it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.